When we look at the night sky, the scale of the cosmos suggests a specific conclusion. We're tiny, accidental byproducts of a massive machine. But in the 11th century, the Persian philosopher Nasser Khosrow examined that same universe and proposed the opposite. In his text, al-Akhwan, he outlined a different physics of existence. Khosrow noted a paradox about reality. The physical universe is vast and widely dispersed, yet without a conscious observer to process it, that vastness remains inert. It possesses no meaning on its own. We are going to map out Khosrow's ontological framework, a logical proof that places human consciousness at the center of reality, and then test his mechanics against other global philosophies. If Khosrow's logic holds up, humanity shifts from a cosmic accident to a structural necessity. This diagram maps Khosrow's primary axiom, the division of reality, into two categories. There are universals, the grand abstract wholes, and particulars, the fragmented individual parts. He builds this through observation of the human body. Consider how a person's physical state temporarily manifests as a specific instance of heat, or shifts to cold. When that human body eventually dies, those specific instances of heat and cold vanish from the material world. But Khosrow points out that the properties of heat and cold are not destroyed. They return to their universal source, waiting to be pushed back out into a new particular form. Now apply that same mechanical logic to metaphysical reality. Take the individual human soul. Khosrow observed that unlike raw elements like water or earth, individual minds actively seek to acquire knowledge and benefit from one another, building an interconnected network of meaning. Because individual souls exhibit this drive to gather and compound, they follow the same rule as physical elements. They originate from, and eventually return to, a universal soul. This leads to his ultimate philosophical inversion. In Khosrow's system, the macrocosm, the entire physical universe, is essentially the scattered raw material. The microcosm, the individual human being, is the specific site where the universe's scattered utility is collected, processed, and realized. The cosmos acts as a massive dispersed engine. Humanity serves as the highly concentrated mechanism required for that engine to recognize itself. 2 centuries later, this dense philosophical framework found its perfect poetic expression through Jalal al-Din Rumi. In the 4th book of his Mathnawi, Rumi distills this relationship between the microcosm and the macrocosm into a single couplet. He writes, "Therefore in form you are the microcosm. Outwardly, a human being appears as a tiny, fragile fragment of a much larger physical system." But he concludes, "Therefore in meaning you are the macrocosm." Inwardly, the human mind acts as the container holding the entirety of the universe's purpose. Rumi takes Khosrow's clinical geometry of universals and particulars and turns it into an existential mandate. You are the point of the whole exercise. This teleological inversion is not an isolated idea limited to Islamic metaphysics. If we look westward, the same logical architecture appears. We see its roots in classical Greco-Roman thought, specifically with the 3rd century Neoplatonist philosopher Plotinus. This diagram visualizes Plotinus's argument. Reality begins with a single, unified source of perfection, which he called the One. Through a process called emanation, the abundance of the One overflows, cascading downward to form the divine mind. That level then overflows into the world soul, which finally fractures into the vast, scattered base of individual conscious minds. Fast forward to 19th century Germany, and we find a strikingly similar mechanism in the work of G.W.F. Hegel. Hegel built his philosophical system around the concept of Geist, a German term translating to absolute spirit or mind. For Hegel, Geist starts as a purely abstract, universal potential. It exists, but it doesn't truly know itself yet. To achieve actual self-consciousness, that abstract spirit must work its way through the fragmented reality of human history and individual human minds. Plotinus, Hegel, and Khosrow operated centuries apart, yet align on a specific mechanical conclusion. Abstract universal reality relies on human fragmentation to know itself. The model holds up against Western idealism, but it gets pushed even further when we test it against the non-dualistic traditions of East Asia. In Chinese Mahayana thought, specifically the Huayan school of Buddhism, the relationship between the part and the whole is immediate. This structure visualizes Huayan's metaphor for reality, known as Indra's net. It envisions a cosmic web stretching out infinitely in all directions. At every intersection of this net sits a single jewel, representing one particular entity or individual. Because the surface of every jewel is polished, any single jewel instantly reflects every other jewel in the entire network simultaneously. Khosrow mapped a top-down hierarchy of emanation. Huayan removes the hierarchy, offering a system of instantaneous mutual reflection. The universal is entirely present in every node. We see a similar mechanical divergence in ancient Chinese philosophy with Taoism and its foundational figure, Laozi. In the Dao De Jing, Laozi writes that all flourishing things must eventually return to their root, remerging with the unified state of the Tao. Khosrow argued souls return to the universal by actively gathering knowledge. Taoism dictates the inverse. Returning to the root requires emptying oneself of artificial distinctions. The mechanics of how we get there vary across these traditions, yet they validate the core premise. The truth of the cosmos is accessible within the single, localized individual. When we overlay Islamic metaphysics, Western idealism, and Eastern non-dualism, a distinct visual consensus emerges regarding our position in reality. The logic that Nasser Khosrow laid out in the 11th century provides a framework for this global alignment. The individual functions as the specific sensory organ the universe constructed to experience itself. Human consciousness serves as the operative mechanism. Recognizing our particular nature affirms our structural necessity to the cosmos.